they found a very, very fertile market to exploit and to sell us the shoddy piece of goods. Now you have so many other ways of escaping from the hard realities of life. For example, you have 57 television channels.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine has a huge television set, which is as big as a screen. It can be compared to a screen in any movie house. He has 1,000 channels. You find it that it is very difficult to watch even 10 programs here all the time. See, they are selling, and commercials are most amazing, the way they are trying to sell products. And they are using children, not only here, even in India, to promote their goodies.
Right.
And so now you see, the moment you think you have everything that you can reasonably ask for, the question arises, is that all? The moment that question, is that all, crops up inside of you, you have created a market for the holy men to exploit us.
Mm-hmm.
If that is all, then there is no problem. Unfortunately, we have created what is called a value system. Whether it is Occidental or Oriental, it really doesn't matter. It is a value system created by our culture or by our society or whatever you want to call, and based upon the model of those spiritual teachers that existed in the past. And we have in our midst a lot of people, they are all imitators, trying to imitate the lives of those people. So what we are forced to do is to try to fit into that framework. That framework is false. See, it doesn't mean anything to us living in the present day world, but we are forcing ourselves to fit into that kind of a framework, and that is responsible for the cause of our misery. Is there any way we can free ourselves from the stranglehold of that framework? It is not so easy. This friend of mine asked me this morning, how come those people who have been exposed to you for almost 30 years remain the same?
Remain the same?
Remain the same. And I answered that question in a very simple way. The structure of thought that is put in there by our culture or by our society, Oriental or Occidental, it doesn't matter, has created such an armor around you that it is impossible for me or for anybody to break in and destroy that armor and allow whatever is there to express itself in its own way. I also gave him the simile of the Maginot Line, that during the Second World War, the French talked about it as impregnable. So what actually happened was the Germans entered France and blew it up from inside, and that surprised everybody. What happened to that impregnable Maginot Line? So in exactly the same way, something like that has to happen from within you, to explode the armor that has been there for centuries. You see, it is that is protecting itself and not what is there inside. So is there any way that we can do? Is there anything that we can do about it? And I say, nothing. Nothing you can do about it unless you are lucky or fortunate enough to allow what was there inside to grow up the whole thing. But whatever you are doing is to strengthen and fortify that armor you have built around yourself, or the society has built around us. And it is not so easy for us to break into destroying the whole thing.
The pressure from outside and the indoctrination we've all gone through, the shell around us is so thick.
So thick.
That when someone like you comes along and tries to penetrate it with some kind of words of wisdom or something to give us an insight into it, it's very difficult.
Almost impossible, because it has survived millions and millions
of years.
So its only interest is to strengthen and fortify it. And its only interest is to add more and more the knowledge you have. That is why they ask how. How means they want to know. By adding more and more to the knowledge we already have, it becomes more and more difficult for us to handle the problems.
So how do we break through that shell?
For centuries, the how means you want to know.
Yeah, how means I want to know, and that's the problem.
That question is part of that structure of our thinking mechanism. There is nothing that we can do. But the moment you put it that way, they say you are a pessimist, and that is your point of view, and we are still optimistic about it. Do they really want to break it and destroy that completely and totally? Anybody's guess.
Yeah, because
We are fed on that kind of a bunk for centuries, that it would be well nigh impossible for us to switch over to some other kind of a diet.
And it's secure.
Yes, certainly, you see. And we are now caught up in what is called the scientific thinking, psychological thinking. They are no different from that. You see, if you really listen to the scientific thinking of all these scientists of today, what they are actually doing is no different from the metaphysics of our times. The philosophers sat together and discussed what is truth, is not truth, what is this cause and effect relationship, is there a cause, is there any relationship between the cause and effect, and that kind of a thing goes on and goes on and on and on and on. If the diet were to be changed, we would all die of starvation. Why we have tremendous faith in the scientific thinking is because it has resulted in what we call the technical know-how.
Technical know-how.
We are able to have this, broadcast this from this room all over.
Right, radio.
So we are so grateful to them that they have given us tools. The only thing that is useful is what it has given us, this, the technical know-how, the technology. But ultimately, it will only destroy the very thing that we want to keep it going. One basic problem we are facing today is that we are made to believe that we are born here on this planet for some nobler and grander purpose than all the other forms of life. And the whole world is created for our benefit.
Right.
It is that, you see, the fundamental thing that is responsible for creation of all this misery on this planet. They have as much right to survive on this planet as we have.
I abhor that. I've said in many lectures and columns that man is no more made in the image of the mystery than is a flea.
Yes.
This is why I love Meister Eckhart.
Yes.
I quoted Meister Eckhart many times. He said, do you want to see God? Look at a pile of dung in the stable, a pile of manure. He said, you want to see God? Look at a flea.
Yes.
And he said, man is no more the divine creature as a flea.
Yes.
And the bishops didn't like him for that.
No, he was chased out of that country.
He said to go around looking for God is like sitting on an ox looking for an ox to ride. I love that. No, I have written a great deal on that subject. What an arrogance to think that the whole universe and the earth and everything was created for us. What arrogance.
We don't realize that, you see, the harm that we are doing to our fellow beings.
Right.
We are all made to believe that that is the case. You are here for some noble purpose. And I give you the example, you see, of my taking walks with the cobras, wild animals.
With a cobra.
With a cobra. And they have seen it all. And then I tell them one thing, you see, if you are frightened, you emit certain odors. And they don't trust the human species. So they have to take the first step and kill me. But we are killing hundreds and hundreds of cobras to save the coming generations from the menace of the cobras we have in our midst today. But what we are actually doing is creating an ecological problem. Why you know that? Because the field mice will have a field day and they destroy all the crops and we will be without food. So we have no business. The kids only one. So if you are not frightened, I'm telling you, see, they take a walk with you. You can talk to them if they understand what you are saying. Is altogether a different thing. They will never harm. I can give you an example. I have seen a cobra falling into the cradle of a 5-month-old baby. They were both playing. You see, I don't want people to test the veracity of my statement. But if you are not frightened, they know that, you see, you are not a menace to them. If you are frightened, you omit certain orders, and they have to take the first step.
So you feel there's some kind of a psychic relationship with all the animals?
Not psychic, you see, the oneness of life that
Right.
we experience it and isolate ourselves.
And the cobra picks it up.
Cobra picks it up.
Right.
See, its survival is more important than our survival, our ideas of survival.
One of my good friends was Frank Waters. He was one of the premier anthropologists in the world on the American Indian,
Yeah.
and he lived outside of Tucson. And when my wife and I would visit him, I said to him one time, I said, "Frank, you must be surrounded with rattlesnakes out here." And he said, "Oh no, I'm not." He said, "The neighbors all are." and I said, "Why aren't you?" He said, "The first thing I did when I moved in here," he said, "I went and sat down out on the ground and I talked to them. And I said, I'm not going to hurt you. This is your land, and you don't hurt me, and we're going to get along fine." And he said, "I communicated with the rattlesnakes." And he said, "I've not been bothered by any rattlesnakes since we moved in here." And I noticed that the introduction to your book was written by Jeffrey Masson, the one that wrote When Elephants Weep.
Yes.
And I have used that on my radio show here many times, When Elephants Weep.
And he has also written a book, I think.
About Dogs Love.
Dogs Love.
I just got that the other day.
Yeah, I meet him very often whenever I'm here.
He's in Berkeley.
Yes, his father was a very good friend of mine. He died very recently. Yes. He always visited me whenever I am here in Canada.
Oh, that's wonderful, because we love that
What
book.
attracted him to me was my statement that Freud was a stupendous fraud of the 20th century.
Freud was the greatest fraud?
Stupendous fraud.
Fraud of the 20th century. Oh, I agree to that,
Because
too.
it was he who exposed, when he was doing his research work in his archives there in London, that friend, and he found out that he falsified case history.
Right.
Really,
He did.
to establish his own theories. And I met Jung, you see, several years ago, I don't know, about almost 40 years ago, when he was in Switzerland. And I told him that, look here, I don't see basically any difference between your approaches to the psychological problems. What was responsible for your breakup with Freud and others was the love affair you had with the same woman, the Russian woman. It all came out very recently. You know that?
Right.
But you picked up some silly material from Chinese books and Indian books and created a system of your own to establish yourself on your own.
Right.
But basically, see, I don't see any difference between the two.
But
If you don't accept that there is a psyche, all your attempts to help a person, you see, to free himself from the psychological problems is no different.
So the collective unconscious of Jung, you don't buy into that?
I don't even think that there is any such thing as consciousness. It's because you become conscious of a thing only when you know what you are looking at. You call it consciousness. You see, consciousness, thought, memory, they are all the same. You see, thought is memory. You see, we forget about the definitions given to us by what is thought and all that kind of a thing. What is memory? Memory is nothing but noise. Whether you talk to yourself or talk to somebody else out there, you have to use a language.
Right.
What is language? Language is the spacing of the notes. You see? And so you learn the art of spacing the two notes and create a language. And what is that language? You can never recognize anything without naming. So although those people on the high platform tell us all the time that recognition and naming and all that, you cannot recognize anything unless you name it, unless you know what you are looking at. So you are talking to yourself all the time. That is noise. It is very amazing that Indian languages, all the four-lettered words in your language are only two letters. Even the four-lettered word, love and the other F, you use only two letters. So that is how we have created the language. That is how we have created all this music by spacing the two notes. So what is there is only the noise. I know I meet a lot of brain physiologists and brain psychologists. They come to see me out of curiosity. And a lot of nuclear physicists, a lot of holy men in India. And I tell them one thing, you see, one of these days you will find out that brain plays a very, very minor role in this living organism. All that you are attributing it to the brain. And the memory you are talking about, where is that memory and what is that memory? Where is it?
Mm-hmm.
I know you use all kinds of things these days. As a student of psychology, I had to do psychology as part of my studies in the university. And I did more of Western philosophy than Indian philosophy. 60 years ago, I'm talking about.
So where is memory?
Where is memory? It is, we were taught the definition, to recall a specific thing at a specific time is defined as memory.
Mm-hmm.
Now they call it neurons or some things that they play a part.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you know what you are looking at, you cannot recognize anything. So thought, memory, consciousness, all are the same. It is noise. You'll be surprised when you think silently, your brain is not involved. What is involved is the vocal cords. You listen to your own noise that you are producing inside.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, you cannot recognize anything out there or inside.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you may not agree with what I am saying,
Mm-hmm.
but when once you see the thought cannot take hold of, you see, this living organism and control it,
Mm-hmm.
it is freed from the stranglehold of thought, then you see the five sensory activities that you are born with take over.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have a problem of discussing the space, the three dimensions, fourth dimensions, if Einstein were to be here today, if he is really interested in understanding what a mess he made of the whole thing, which has resulted in the nuclear weapons, of course he cried and cried for years after advising Roosevelt, go ahead, otherwise the Germans will develop the bombs and will destroy. That is all right, that is acceptable to me.
Mm-hmm.
But the way he approached these problems was very misleading. See, the physical eye does not see the depth at all. I am sitting right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
If the knowledge I have about you is not focused on you, and if the eyes are just looking at you, everything is flat there.
It is what? Flat?
It's like a painting on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
The physical eye does not see the depth at all.
Mm-hmm.
The physical eye does not see the colors.
Mm-hmm.
So even that I am taught, that the tree is green,
Mm-hmm.
that the sweater you are wearing is red or pink or whatever is the color.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't recognize that, if I don't name it, what I call me, what you call you, is finished.
Mm-hmm. Or define it.
What is there is only the knowledge we have of the things. The eye, physical eye, does not look at the sky as blue.